The way that the Kenyan Luo culture in particular shaped attitudes towards sex was a key aspect of the study we are doing. Like for example, the planting of crops. The belief is that when the rain starts, before a couple can proceed with the planting, they must have sex. The second misconception was when a child is born, it is believed that the husband must have sex with the mother of the child before he can have sex with any of her co-wives. Otherwise, no more children will be born to that woman. Or when a husband dies, the widow must be cleansed sexually before she can be inherited. In that case of a son or a daughter getting married, the parents were expected to have sex a night before or on the day of marriage. Or when a home was being constructed, before it could be occupied, the husband was supposed to have sex with his wife in the house. I'm particularly interested in this kind of cultures. It all circulates around African sexualities. These were the beliefs in our African community. Not only they were the beliefs, they are still beliefs up to now, because you find many cultures have different beliefs. I'd like to welcome you to another session of Just a Podcast. As usual, I'm your host with the most. They call me Timothy, and we are still focusing on the African sexualities, today being the second episode of African sexualities, and we are handling the paradoxes of sex work and sexuality in modern day Africa by Sylvia Tamale. What is love? Love is something natural. Love is key to life. Love is education. Love is science. Love is light. Love is a gift of speaking in tongues. Love is beyond human control. Love is a secret. Love creates hope, and love is history. I adore sexuality. It reveals the many different shades of blackness: shy sexuality, blue, exquisite thoughtfulness, and nobility. Sensual purpose invite gentle probing from fingertips, much like bruises, pitch black as solid as heart. It grows into a mass of increasing impenetrability like jars and memories. I am proud, strong, intelligent, assertive, and funny. Natural leader. I have my own definitive ideas on sexuality. They bring life into picture. It's like I take a canvas or a paper and I draw crayons of a woman in a business suit juggling a pot, or a baby, or a briefcase and a planet. I am inspired by what I see. This chapter seeks to introduce readers to some of the most significant areas in which questions of sexuality and gender have galvanized activism on the continent during the past time. Like in a brief historical framework that was offered to orient the reader to the 21st century context that the chapter discusses. This chapter explores what we mean when we use terms as resistance and activism, and goes on to profile different areas in which African-based challenges to the entrenched political, cultural, and legal norms that regulate gender injustice are rooted. The objective of this chapter, therefore, is not to offer any comprehensive panorama of the genres on gender and sexuality activisms on the continent, but more to offer tends to offer the reader a sense of dynamism, of color, of the social, cultural, and political African-based struggles for gender justice that take sexuality serious. A word of caution about the language, please. The term Africa has a weak history, let me say. There's a debate of the origins of the names for the continent and sexuality. Therefore, this makes it very difficult for us to decide, when it comes to sexuality. More of these histories where our sexualities are derived from, they focus on a relationship of colonialism. And it's critical to recognize that it's impossible to speak of Africa as a generalization without erasing the complexity, nuance, and the difference. The continent is vast, and the civilization, the people, the language, and the history is extremely rich. In such a talk or such a chapter as this one, whose objective is to explicitly embrace the idea of sexuality, an overview of critical moments of political and social activism. This term sexuality will be used before we come to the end of this series. The term sexuality will be used sometime to describe the connections between Africa and the organizations within Africa and how they relate to the organization to the Western culture, and how we have a culture import and how we have a sexuality import. To an extent, we are copy-pasting the Western world perceives their sexuality. But in every case, I will try to avoid gross homogenization. In a very real way, I can say there's the names. Who came up with the name Africa? Who came up with the name sexuality? Let's imagine like African sexuality being just a space highlighted and debated in opposition to the discourses that stereotype of the continent as undeveloped. People being incapable of self-governance or poor and its cultures. It's just primitive. Such discourses abound even in this 21st century. And when we seek to understand questions of African-based activism in the area of gender and sexuality, it is important to try to do so in a way that respects the depth and complexity of the political, social, and historical realities of the continent. To sum it up, I'm trying to introduce some of the interesting activisms of the past decades in order to understand them fully. But it is also vital to discover more about the contextual stories and histories invoked by this chapter and how it begins. That is it for today. I didn't want to tire you, but I hope you'll be keeping up with these episodes as they grow. It's a happy day and it's a happy week, and this is episode 2. Yeah, we're still going. Make sure you subscribe on all our platforms, on Linktree, on YouTube, on Spotify, and I'd like to invite those questions for discussion. And if you want to host a session with me, I'm open to suggestions. I am your host with the most, they call me Timothy, and this is just a pod signing out.